This podcast was produced using artificial intelligence and refined by human editors. Konnichiwa, travelers, and welcome aboard another episode of Travel with Lara and Luca. I'm your host, Lara, with my ever-enthusiastic co-pilot.
That's me, Luca. Though I must confess, the only thing I'm piloting today is my imagination, straight to the heart of Japan.
Absolutely, Luca. Today we're embarking on a virtual journey to the charming, historic, and endlessly fascinating city of Kyoto.
A city where every step is a dance with history, and every breath is a lesson in culture.
Well put, as always, Luca. You know, our listeners might be expecting this, but every time we talk about Kyoto, I feel like I'm encased within a page of a Murakami novel, where the surreal meets the serene.
Speaking of serene, let's not forget Kyoto was once Japan's capital, a place where emperors reigned and the geisha danced under weeping cherry blossoms.
Or samurai walked the night, right, Luca? So mysterious and majestic. And speaking of stories, isn't it fascinating how Kyoto has been this incredible muse for filmmakers and storytellers across the world?
Oh, definitely. Classic films like Lost in Translation and Memoirs of a Geisha come to mind. They capture not only the essence of Kyoto, but that untranslatable feeling, what the Japanese would call monoawe, the somewhat sweet sadness of things.
That's pure poetry, Luca. And I can't help but think of Kyoto as a living museum, but not the kind you tiptoe around in hushed tones, rather one where every alleyway and Zen garden invites you to become a part of the exhibit, a part of Kyoto's ongoing story.
I remember tiptoeing though, Lara, not around a museum, but trying to navigate around those tatami mats without stepping on the borders. Talk about a cultural obstacle course.
A true test of agility and respect. But that's Kyoto for you, blending elegance with etiquette in such a seamless way. And since we promised our listeners chit-chat with tidbits of culture,
we shall chat, and chat we shall. But first, a quick nod to our wonderful community. Hello to all you globetrotters tuning in from far and wide. Your messages about our last episode were like virtual hugs.
Absolutely heartwarming. We read every single one, and your travel tales make us feel connected and sometimes give us serious travel envy. Today we hope to fill your minds with picturesque visions of Kyoto that will spark your wanderlust.
Let's dive in, with your permission, dear Lara, into the warm waters of Kyoto's essence.
Permission granted, Captain Luca. You guys can't see it, but he literally just saluted. So formal.
What can I say? I'm feeling the Kyoto spirit. All right, listen up, folks. If you've got a soft spot for temples, shrines, and spirits of the past, then Kyoto is your spiritual haven.
And if you're hungry for some of the best culinary experiences, a cuisine that's been refined over centuries, then hold on to your chopsticks, because Kyoto's kitchens are on another level of Epicurean delight.
Watch out for our next segment. I might just try to convince you that tofu is the secret to eternal happiness.
Good luck with that. But before we tickle your taste buds, we'll revel in the iconic sights that make Kyoto a jewel in the crown of Japan.
Picture this: majestic golden pavilions, stone gardens that echo the cosmos, and vermilion gates that lead to nowhere and everywhere in Kyoto's spiritual landscape.
That pretty much sums up Fushimi Inari Taisha. I can't wait to talk about the fox spirits guarding the place. They say they are messengers
of Inari, the god of rice. And let's not forget, rice in Japan isn't just food, it's pretty much a divine gift. So we're basically walking on hallowed grounds when we stroll through those gates. Speaking of divine, we'll take you down the path less traveled too, the hidden gems of Kyoto where silence speaks volumes, and the hidden places that locals cherish and tourists sometimes overlook.
There's nothing quite like finding that secluded garden or that quaint tea house tucked away from the bustle of tourist traffic. Kyoto is brimming with secrets waiting to be discovered.
And when it comes to must-see places, we're not just talking grand temples and sprawling palaces, although they are stunning, no doubt. We're also going to give you the scoop on where to catch that perfect sunrise or sunset. Right, Lara?
Couldn't agree more. The play of light on the old wooden structures of Kyoto is like watching a live painting. Every hour brings a new shade, a new mood to the city's canvas.
Ooh, I like that metaphor. Speaking of light and shade, let's cast some on the weird facts of Kyoto, the ones that might just make you look twice at this city of tradition.
Oh, the weird and wonderful. I can't wait to delve into that. From vending machines that dispense, let's say, unusual items, to the city's love affair with everything from pickles to video games, the quirky side of Kyoto is endlessly fascinating.
Then, of course, we can't skip the rich tapestry of Kyoto's history. The dynasties, the power struggles, the art, and the architecture that has weathered the passage of time and have stories etched into every groove.
And to make sure you all get the most out of your virtual and hopefully soon physical journey to Kyoto, we've got expert travel tips. Think of them as your friendly local's advice, just without the local. I mean, we're as local as two chatty podcast hosts can be, right?
Exactly. We're going to arm you with all the know-how to navigate the etiquette minefields that can be traditional Kyoto, as well as how to get around, what to pack, and where to stay. Though I'm pretty sure some would love to stay forever in Kyoto. Lara?
You're not wrong, Luca. And we're not just sticking to the heart of Kyoto. Our side excursions will take you to the equally enchanting neighborhoods and towns that offer their own histories, flavors, and charm. So keep that itinerary open.
And lastly, but certainly not least, our conclusion and final thoughts, Kyoto style. Expect poetry, musings, and maybe a few heartfelt sayonaras as we wrap up our journey through this mesmerizing city.
And who knows, Luca might serenade us with his best rendition of J-pop. Just kidding. Or am I?
Now that would be a showstopper. But for now, let's stick to what we know best, sharing our love for travel, culture, and the magical city of Kyoto.
So grab your virtual suitcase, listeners, because we're about to take off. Welcome to Travel with Lara and Luca, Kyoto edition.
Stick around, don't go anywhere unless it's towards the teapot for a fresh brew. We'll be right back after this metaphorical sip of green tea. Stay tuned.
See you in a flash, travelers. And we're back, freshly brewed green tea in hand. You're listening to Travel with Lara and Luca, and today's episode is all about the enchanting Kyoto.
A city that's like a live-action scroll painting, where every corner is an invitation to wonder. Let's start with the iconic sites that have become symbols of Kyoto's enduring beauty. Leading the pack is the one, the only, Kinkaku-ji.
Ah, yes, the Golden Pavilion. Imagine a structure covered in pure gold leaf, shimmering like a mirage on the edge of a calm pond, a sight that can make you forget to breathe for a second.
I remember that moment. I'm pretty sure I heard a soft gasp from every person that came into view of Kinkaku-ji for the first time. Standing there, reflecting the sun, it's as if you've walked into a dream or, I dare say, a scene straight from a Miyazaki film.
It's a masterpiece, isn't it? For those who might not know, Kinkaku-ji, or Rokuon-ji, is a Zen Buddhist temple in northern Kyoto, and it's literally the poster child for the city. But, Luca, do you remember the history? It's been through quite a lot, including being burned down several times.
Oh yes, the Phoenix Temple, always rising from the ashes. The most recent reconstruction was in 1955, after a fanatic monk burned it down. But you wouldn't guess its tumultuous past from its serene presence.
From the golden beauty we move to a contrasting temple, Kinkaku-ji, the silver pavilion. Interestingly, it's not covered in silver, but was intended to be. It presents wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and impermanence, a stark contrast to Kinkaku-ji's ostentation.
And can we talk about the Sea of Sand? The Jinshadan, where the gravel is raked to represent the sea, while Mount Fuji is symbolized by a perfectly sculpted cone of sand called Kogetsudai.
It's a minimalist lover's paradise. It teaches you that there's beauty in simplicity, in the unfinished, the evolving, a lesson in aesthetics one could carry through life.
Kyoto is certainly a teacher and a spiritual guide too. Let's veer to Fushimi Inari Taisha, home to the thousands of vermilion torii gates. The place pulses with a sacred energy.
Absolutely. Those torii gates are like energizing portals. They snake up Mount Inari, and they're donations from individuals and companies, hence the inscriptions. Those walks are a meditative journey as you ascend through the gates, leaving behind the noise of the world.
Yeah, just you and the rustling of leaves, the brush of your sleeve against the torii. An experience steeped in serenity. And those fox statues, the messengers of Inari, they seem to keep watch over the pilgrims with an enigmatic smile.
Fox is smiling. Now that's an image. Another place where smiles are guaranteed is Arashiyama and its incredible bamboo grove. Imagine being surrounded by these towering stalks of bamboo, a green cathedral.
There's a sound there, right? A sort of music as the bamboo sways, a rustling that feels both ancient and alive. To walk among those giants is to understand the depth of nature's beauty.
And for our listeners with a flair for the dramatic, there's always Kiyomizu-dera. That stage-like terrace offers some heart-stopping views of the city. I mean, that's where the phrase, to jump off the stage at Kiyomizu comes from, right?
Right you are. It's a testament to taking a leap, even though now you'd just be diving into a sea of tourists taking selfies. But the temple's magnificence isn't diminished. It's a place that invites contemplation and a connection to something greater than ourselves.
Speaking of connection, Kyoto's bridges are a literal and metaphorical connection. There's the iconic Togetsukyo Bridge in Arashiyama, which translates to bridge crossing the moon, and it's framed by hills and cherry blossoms or autumn leaves, depending on the season.
Romantic, isn't it? Almost tailor-made for poetry or confessions of love. Of course, over the centuries, it has witnessed everything from historical processions to modern-day dramas.
Kyoto is a stage set for stories, dramas, and moments that capture the heart. Nijo Castle, with its nightingale floors designed to sing at the slightest step to alert of ninja intruders, plays its part in this symphony.
Ah, those chirping floors. It's like Nijo Castle has its own soundtrack. And talk about opulence, the carvings, the gold leaf, the gardens. Every shogun wanted to leave a mark, and they certainly did. It's like walking through the pages of history, each room a chapter of power, conspiracy, and culture.
Well, speaking of a different kind of culture, let's not forget the cultural treasure that is the Philosopher's Path. It's a canal-side walk lined with hundreds of cherry trees, and it's named for Nishida Kitaro, an influential Japanese philosopher who meditated on that route.
I imagine the cherry blossoms get a bit philosophical too when they fall into the canal, contemplating their ephemeral existence. It's the kind of place that invites deep thoughts, and yet it's simple. A path, some trees, a canal, and the sky above.
Simple yet profound, Luca, just like our podcast. But before we descend too deep into our philosophies, let's take a brief interlude. When we return, we'll dive into the culinary traditions that will make your mouth water and your spirit hungry for more.
Hungry for Kyoto. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay tuned for an exploration of flavors that will take your taste buds on a trip of their own.
Welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca. While our first segment was a feast for the eyes, get ready because we're about to serve up a feast for the soul and stomach, Kyoto's delectable cuisine.
That's right, Lara. We're talking about food so good, it's been blessed by the gods, or at least it tastes that way. Let's start with the heart of Kyoto's culinary art, kaiseki.
Oh, kaiseki, the epitome of Japanese haute cuisine. This isn't just eating. This is a journey through seasonal landscapes, with dishes that are as much a treat for the palate as they are for the eyes.
Remember my first kaiseki experience, Lara? I was like a kid in a candy store. If that store served meticulously arranged dishes with oddly shaped vegetables I couldn't name.
And that's the beauty of it. Kaiseki is a poetic expression, a symphony where every course plays a note. The use of local ingredients is a tribute to nature's diversity. And the preparation, well, that's a testament to the chef's mastery.
Mastery indeed. Every dish tells a story, connected to the land, the season, to traditions old as the city itself. The symbolic meanings, the textures, the culinary ethos. It's an education on a plate, isn't it?
Absolutely. Kaiseki is a philosophy, a way of life almost. But let's not forget the simpler pleasures like yudofu, a Kyoto winter favorite.
Yudofu, or boiled tofu. Now there's a dish that embodies Zen simplicity, a dish that shows less is more. After all, in Kyoto, tofu is royalty and served in a hot pot right at your table.
Royalty with a humble charm. It's a warming, soothing dish that really brings out the subtle flavor of the tofu, especially when it's made with that famously soft Kyoto water, served with just a touch of soy for dipping. It's perfection.
Speaking of famous water, there's no talking about Kyoto cuisine without mentioning matcha, the finely ground green tea that's whisked to perfection.
Any matcha enthusiast will tell you there's matcha and there's Kyoto matcha. The matcha you find here will spoil all other green teas for you. It's rich, it's creamy, and it's got a slight natural sweetness to it.
It's like drinking a field of green. And if you're into matcha, or if we've just turned you into a fan, then you've got to try everything matcha flavored in Kyoto. We're talking matcha ice cream, matcha noodles, matcha cakes.
Matcha beer, I remember that one. It was an unexpected twist on a pub night, a bit like you, Luca, full of unexpected twists.
I'll take that as a compliment. And let's not forget, Lara, the sushi. Kyoto may not be on the coast, but it has a centuries-long tradition of serving up some of the best sushi through impeccable preservation techniques.
That's right. Kyoto's sushi variants like sabazushi, mackerel pressed onto sushi rice, are a testament to the ingenuity of Kyoto chefs, who historically found ways to keep the seafood fresh without modern refrigeration.
Innovation and tradition, hand in hand, just like a sushi roll. And for those of our listeners who enjoy a little pick-me-up snack, Kyoto's got you covered with tsukemono, Japanese pickles.
Tsukemono isn't your regular pickle. It's a world of crunchy, tangy, sweet, and umami flavors. Each one is a surprise, kind of like unearthing treasures at a flea market.
And speaking of treasures, there's none quite so sweet as Kyoto's wagashi, traditional Japanese confections. These are not just sweets, they're little edible artworks made to accompany tea.
From colorful mochi to delicate manju and more, wagashi taps into Japan's natural and cultural beauty, bringing the seasons into sugar, bean paste, and rice flour. It's culinary poetry, really.
Oh, and for our listeners who like something savory, you've got to try okonomiyaki, Kyoto style. It's like a pancake filled with all sorts of goodness, and you can add toppings to your heart's content.
It's street food that gives you a warm hug. And while we're in the comfort food neighborhood, let's not forget about the humble ramen. In Kyoto, every bowl is a tribute to the local palate. A lighter broth, maybe with a hint of soy or fish, and always the perfect balance of toppings.
A bowl of Kyoto ramen is a bowl of home, even if you've never had it before. It's that welcoming.
And every visitor must try Kyoto's version of kaiseki, called shojin ryori, which is the vegetarian cuisine of the local Zen Buddhist temples. It's as much a feast for the spirit as it is for the taste buds, making use of seasonal produce and tofu in the most inventive ways.
Yes, shojin ryori. It almost seems wrong to say eat these dishes. It's more like experiencing them, honoring the effort put into avoiding waste and the respect for the ingredients used. You leave the meal feeling enlightened and not just sated.
Plus, the act of eating shojin ryori can be a reflection on the Buddhist principles that underpin Kyoto's culture. Respect for all living things, harmony with nature, and inner peace. That's what you can digest along with your meal.
Inner peace and a full stomach. I'd call that a winning combination. But if we are talking about combinations, we have to mention the unique dining setting known as kawadoko, dining platforms set over the flowing waters of the Kamo River.
Kawadoko is a summer tradition that blends the refreshing coolness of the river with the pleasure of fine dining. The sound of the water, the evening breeze, a dish of chilled somen noodles. Can life get any better?
I think the only time it gets better is during Sakura season, when everything has a touch of cherry blossom. There's that gentle flurry of petals in the air, and it's not just visually astounding, it flavors the food too. Sakura mochi, anyone?
Oh yes! Wrapped in a pickled cherry leaf, it's sweet and salty and all things springtime in a bite. But as we celebrate the seasons, let's not forget the local drinking scene. Kyoto's sake is something else. Brewed using that soft Kyoto water, it's smooth and refined, just like the city itself.
Refined indeed, and sometimes infused with local fruits or flowers. There is no Japan trip or Kyoto episode complete without raising a glass of sake. Kanpai.
Kanpai! And speaking of sipping something delicious, let's talk about the coffee scene in Kyoto. It's a lovely juxtaposition of old and new, with traditional tea houses and artisanal coffee shops coexisting peacefully.
Peacefully, and with much caffeine. The coffee shops, often in repurposed traditional Kyoto houses, bring the art of coffee to a new level. Slow drip, hand pour, siphon. For coffee lovers, it's an irresistible draw.
Like everything in Kyoto, even the coffee is served with a side of history. Sitting in those cafes, you're surrounded by the past but sipping on the present. It's an extraordinary experience.
And that's Kyoto in a nutshell, isn't it? An extraordinary experience at every turn. Okay, Lara, I think it's safe to say I'm officially hungry now.
Fortunately, our listeners can grab a snack during this break. We'll be back with more Kyoto delights shortly. Stay tuned as we head into the hidden gems of this ancient city.
Will do. And don't hold back on the Kyoto snacks, dear friends. Catch you after the break. And we've returned to Travel with Lara and Luca, your personal guide through the wonders of Kyoto and beyond. If you've ticked off all the famous sites and sampled the myriad of Kyoto flavors, you might be wondering, what's next?
What's next is the path less traveled, Luca. It's the quiet allure of Kyoto's hidden gems, the tucked-away treasures that aren't thronged by the typical tourist crowds. Let's start with one of my favorites, the small but enchanting Kawai Kanjiro house.
Ah, the residence-turned-museum of the prolific potter Kawai Kanjiro. It's truly a hidden gem. Tucked away in a residential neighborhood, it's a peaceful space displaying Kanjiro's works, along with the kiln he used in his craft.
Stepping into his world feels like you've been invited into someone's life. The beautiful folk art, the warmth of his wood-fired pottery, it's intimate and inspiring.
Much like the Tetsugaku no Michi, or Philosopher's Path, we mentioned earlier. But there's another spot along that path that doesn't get as much attention, the Honen-in Temple. It's smaller and quieter than its neighbors, with its moss-covered gates feeling like something from a forgotten time.
Completely agree. It's a tranquil oasis, perfect for contemplation. I remember the sand drawings there, meticulously raked to represent water flowing. They truly know how to embrace nature's art in Kyoto.
They do indeed. And with smaller crowds, it feels like you've discovered your own personal slice of Kyoto. That's the thing about these hidden gems. They offer a sense of personal discovery.
And speaking of personal discovery, let's not forget the entertainment districts that were the beating heart of Hanamachi culture. While Gion is famous, areas like Pontocho and Miyagawacho are equally appealing, with their narrow alleyways and hidden ochaya, or tea houses.
Those alleys could tell stories, couldn't they? And if you're lucky, you might just catch a glimpse of a maiko or geisha on their way to an engagement. It's a fleeting glimpse into a world that seems like it belongs to another era.
A world so rich in tradition and discipline. But let's go even farther off the beaten path. What about the small independent movie houses you mentioned earlier, Lara?
Oh yes, you mean the ones like the Kyoto Minami Kaiken, where you can catch a film surrounded by history and film buffs alike. The selection usually includes classic films, arthouse hits, and those under-the-radar pieces that make you think.
That's Kyoto for you, a city that appreciates the delicate balance between the mainstream and the alternative. Sometimes the real is as thought-provoking as the real in this city.
I see what you did there. Another place that gets less foot traffic but is absolutely worth the visit is the Kyoto Botanical Gardens. It's a sprawling space brimming with flora, and it's got an impressive conservatory.
Oh, the conservatory is like walking into a living rainbow with exotic flowers and plants that vie for your attention. It's impressive during any season, and come Hanami season, it's quieter than the more famous spots for cherry blossom viewing.
It's a great tip, Lara. Away from the hustle, closer to the petals and nature's scent. And let's not overlook Kyoto's love for artisan crafts. The lesser visited shops and ateliers are where Kyoto's craft traditions come alive, in places like the Kyoto Handicraft Center.
Yes, filled with textiles, lacquerware, ceramics, a collective celebration of hands shaping beauty. Plus, they often offer workshops where you can try your hand at making your own Kyoto craft. It's a souvenir that comes with a story you've literally molded yourself.
From your hands to your heart, those are the keepsakes that last a lifetime. Just like the memories you make in one of Kyoto's secret gardens or hidden temples that await your presence to be remembered.
Remembered and alive like the Rakushisha, the hut of fallen persimmons. It's close to the Sagano bamboo forest and belonged to the haiku poet Mukai Kyorai. The walls of the hut are inscribed with his poems. It's a testament to the fleeting moments captured in verse.
And each inscription is a window into the soul. This is Kyoto's essence, hidden yet ever present, awaiting those who seek it.
For our adventurous listeners, if you're up for a bit of a climb, venture to Yoshiminadera Temple, perched on the mountainside of Kyoto. The paths less trodden, the silence, and the scenic viewpoints make it a rewarding escape.
Your effort is rewarded tenfold, since the views offer a vista of Kyoto spread out like a tapestry below. It gives perspective in every sense of the word.
Perspective is one thing you'll walk away with after exploring Kyoto's hidden alleys and lesser-known locales. These places are teeming with stories of the past, alongside the vibrant pulse of the present.
And before we pulse into our next segment, let's take a moment. If you've just joined us or if you've been with us since the beginning, we want to say thank you. Thank you for seeking the hidden gems, for traveling with us, for being curious about the world.
Your curiosity is the best companion on any journey. We'll be right back with more Kyoto adventures after this quick pause.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to Travel with Lara and Luca, as we continue to meander through the mystical streets of Kyoto. Those hidden gems might have felt like Kyoto's best-kept secrets, but now we're stepping into the light with the must-see places that give this city its timeless allure.
That's right, Luca. These are the places you simply can't miss, the landmarks that stand as proud symbols of Kyoto's rich heritage. Let's start with a place where even time seems to stand still, Ryoan-ji and its world-renowned rock garden.
Ryoan-ji's rock garden is a riddle wrapped in an enigma, isn't it? 15 stones placed so that from any given vantage point, at least one will always be hidden from view. A Zen mystery that invites contemplation.
Exactly. It's said that only through attaining enlightenment can one view all 15 stones simultaneously. No small feat. But the quest towards that enlightenment makes this a must-see destination, offering a sense of peace and inner reflection.
For those seeking beauty of a lush and vibrant kind, we turn our gaze to the gardens of Saihoji, better known as Kokedera, the Moss Temple. This UNESCO World Heritage Site is a velvet carpet of various hues of green, creating a dreamscape only nature could paint.
Walking through Kokedera is like entering a living painting, indeed. The lush moss blankets the ground and trees, dappling the light in a dance of shadows and sunbeams. It's a magical must-see, but remember, visitations are by appointment only.
Let's not forget another must-see UNESCO site, the Heian Shrine. Its architecture and vermilion torii are reminiscent of the ancient imperial palace, and the shrine's gardens are a sanctum of tranquility all year round, with each season unveiling new colors and flora.
Those gardens are a four seasons painting, especially the weeping cherry trees in the spring. It's as if each petal holds a droplet of history, waiting to be released with the gentlest breeze.
A stroll through Kyoto is a stroll through time, but no historical journey would be complete without a visit to Sanju Sangin-do. This temple houses 1,000 life-size statues of the 1,000-armed Kannon, each with its own unique face, flanked by 28 guardian deities.
The sheer scale is awe-inspiring. It's the longest wooden structure in Japan, stretching unbroken for 120 meters. Stepping inside is a surreal experience as golden eyes seem to watch over you with a calm, protective gaze.
From serenity to bustling life, the must-see Nishiki Market, known as Kyoto's Pantry. Here, the sizzle of street food, the colorful array of local produce, and the charming calls of vendors create a symphony of the senses.
There's something about the hustle and bustle of Nishiki Market that's almost comforting. Each shop a story, each taste a memory to be made. This is where Kyoto's culinary heart beats the loudest, and you can sample everything from skewered seafood to matcha-flavored desserts.
And while we're on the topic of unique experiences, let's glide into the realm of affordable luxury with a must-see experience, spending a night in a ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn.
It's the ultimate Kyoto experience. You slip into a yukata, savor a private kaiseki meal in your room, and sleep on futons laid out on tatami mats. A night in a ryokan is a love letter to the traditional Japanese way of life.
And after sinking into a futon, let's rise with the dawn and head to Maruyama Park. Known as the oldest park in Kyoto, it comes to life in cherry blossom season, but it possesses timeless charm regardless of when you visit.
That central weeping cherry tree, especially when lit up at night during sakura season, Luca, it's like a beacon calling out to every romantic soul.
And if it's romance you're after, then you must see Yasaka Pagoda, especially in the twilight hours. Walking through the aged streets with the pagoda's silhouette against the indigo sky, it's enough to make you a poet, even if you've never penned a verse in your life.
Indeed, Kyoto does inspire poetry, but let's not leave out the intrepid explorers among our listeners. Those who seek a must-see vista will find their heart's desire atop Mount Daimonji. The climb is a pilgrimage in its own right, leading to a breathtaking view of Kyoto.
Ah, the Daimonji overlook. Waiting there, as the city unfurls below in a tapestry of tiled roofs, modern buildings, and timeless temples, you can see why Kyoto has captured so many hearts over the centuries.
It's a view and a climb well worth the effort. And speaking of climbs, let's not overlook Kiyomizu-dera Temple, perched on the wooden stage that juts out over the hillside. There, amidst the temple's grandeur and the panoramic views of Kyoto, one truly feels lifted to new heights.
It's not just a temple, it's an experience, a threshold between earth and sky. The water from the Otowa no Taki waterfall below the main hall is said to have wish-granting powers. I sipped from those sacred streams, and I believe I wished for more travel, which has certainly come true.
A wish most dear to our wandering souls, Luca. Kyoto is itself a wish granted to every traveler who sets foot within its embrace, whether they sip from sacred waters or simply breathe its air.
And let's not rush away from this embrace just yet. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll delve into the enigmatic and fascinating weird facts you never knew about Kyoto. Stick with us.
Welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca, where Kyoto's veiled secrets and untold anecdotes await. We've marveled at the must-see places, and now it's time to tilt our heads, squint our eyes, and say, "Huh?" as we dig into some weird facts about this historical hub.
Oh, huh? Is just the beginning, Lara. Prepare to be intrigued and maybe even baffled. The kind of baffled that makes you love Kyoto even more, if that's possible. So let's kick things off with a fact about something everyone in Kyoto seems to adore: vending machines.
Ah, yes, the trusty vending machine. In Kyoto, and indeed throughout Japan, these metal boxes of joy can dispense almost anything, from hot meals to umbrellas and my personal favorite, poetry books. Imagine needing a haiku for the road, and there's a vending machine for that.
Only in Kyoto would a vending machine quench your thirst for verse. And here's a little-known tidbit. Kyoto is home to the only vending machine in the world that sells bamboo. Yes, bamboo.
You're not bamboozling our listeners, are you, Luca?
No bamboozles here. It's bamboo shoots to be exact. Ready to be pickled, boiled, or added into your favorite dish for some extra crunch.
Well, if bamboo doesn't twist your taste buds, how about Kit Kats? But not just any Kit Kats. In Kyoto, they've taken these chocolatey treats to another level with flavors inspired by the city's tea culture. We're talking matcha of various strengths and even hojicha, roasted green tea.
It's sweet, it's slightly bitter, it's Kyoto in a bite. But here's a fact that's both sweet and sobering. Kyoto has not one, but two love stone shrines. It's said that if you can walk between the stones with your eyes closed, your love wish will come true.
Geisha Shrine is a popular spot for this, and watching love-struck visitors or hopeful singles attempting the walk is as endearing as it is telling of human nature, always seeking that connection.
Now, for a curious fact with a dollop of spookiness, Kyoto's Yasui Kamparagu Shrine houses a power stone said to sever ties and mend relationships. You crawl through a hole in the middle of the stone to break off bad relationships or begin good ones. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it's uniquely Kyoto.
Speaking of unique connections, let's not forget the Imperial Palace Gardens, where you can marvel at trees with witnesses? Several trees in the gardens have been married in a Shinto ceremony called Shinboku en Musubi to pray for prosperity and growth.
Tree matrimony, a leafy love affair. And while we're on the topic of plants, here's a weird morsel. Did you know Kyoto is home to a rather rebellious botanical oddity, the weeping peach tree? Unlike its orderly cherry blossom cousins, this tree is wild in its spring display, branches hanging loose and flowers in a chaotic burst of color.
Disorder in a sea of harmony. That's our weeping peach tree. Now, here's a shift from flora to fauna. Kyoto's Nijo Castle is famous for its nightingale floors that sang under the shogun's feet, but this chirpy alarm system also piqued the interest of local cats, drawn to the castle by the bird-like sounds.
Imagine being a cat and thinking you found the biggest flock of birds, only to discover a bunch of confused guards. But there's more animal weirdness where that came from. Did you know that Kyoto's Toji Temple becomes home to a flea market on the 21st of each month, said to be started by a monk to fend off real fleas?
A flea market for flea prevention. Now that's using your temple noggin. If only our flea markets could ward off actual pests so poetically. And speaking of poetic, there's the rather bizarre practice at Maruyama Park of hanging little strips of poetry on trees, like wishes fluttering in the wind.
A forest of poetry. Surely the trees must approve. And now for a quick swerve back into history, here's a fact that's a head-scratcher. Kyoto's measured response to conflict. During the Onin War, a civil war that razed much of medieval Kyoto to the ground, warring factions agreed to refrain from destroying the city's aqueducts to keep the sake breweries operational.
Priorities, Luca. Without water, there's no sake, and without sake, well, what's the point of winning a war? Speaking of beverages, here's a twist for our literary aficionados. There's a quirky little bar in Kyoto called Bar Kafka, which, as you might guess, is inspired by Franz Kafka. It's a place where you can sip a cocktail and ruminate over the existential questions of life.
That's Kyoto for you, a haven where even the curiosities hold depth and meaning. But let me cap off our weird facts with a little modern eccentricity. Kyoto is unofficially known as Japan's console capital. It's the cradle of video game giants like Nintendo, which started here as a playing card company over a century ago.
A perfect blend of past and future, culture and play. That's our Kyoto. Never a dull moment, whether you're seeking hallowed temples or high-tech escapism.
Dear listeners, as we let these weird and wonderful facts settle in, we hope they've added yet another layer of charm to your impression of Kyoto. Stay with us, because after this short break, Lara and I will take you through the centuries-old tapestry that's become the history of Kyoto.
Tales of samurais, seers, and shoguns await you. Don't go anywhere. And we're back to continue our time-traveling expedition through Kyoto on Travel with Lara and Luca. Every street corner, every temple and shrine, every gust of wind carrying petals across the path whispers tales from the bygone days.
That's very poetic of you, Lara, and rightfully so. Kyoto's history isn't just a timeline, it's an epic narrative etched into the fabric of the city. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? The birth of a capital called Heian-kyo, the tranquil capital, back in 794 AD.
A captivating beginning indeed. The city was laid out in a grid pattern that mimicked the grandeur of the Tang Dynasty's Chang'an in China, signifying power, order, and cosmic harmony. But it wasn't all just grand edifices and courtly poise. Kyoto, then Heian-kyo, soon became a cultural cauldron, brimming with literature, art, and poetry.
The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, a classic of Japanese literature and arguably the world's first novel, was born here within the imperial courts. The Heian period set the foundation for a cultural identity that still permeates every alleyway and tea ceremony to this day.
But as the centuries turned, the city wouldn't remain just a wellspring of culture. The Kamakura period ushered in a time of warrior clans, and suddenly, Kyoto was in the midst of samurai power plays and political intrigue.
Oh, the tales of loyalty, betrayal, and the clashing of swords. Kyoto has seen it all. Among its streets walked figures like Minamoto no Yoritomo and Taira no Kiyomori, whose legacies are as durable as the ancient stones of the city's temples.
Wars scarred Kyoto, including the Onin War, which Luca mentioned earlier, a war that lasted a decade and left the city in ruins. But Kyoto, like the mythical phoenix, arose from its ashes, time and time again.
Resilience is a defining trait of this city, isn't it? And nothing says resilient quite like the unyielding spirit of the samurai. Fast forward to the Edo period, and Kyoto became eclipsed economically by Edo, modern-day Tokyo. However, the city never lost its aristocratic allure and continued being the cultural heart of Japan.
Fast forward again, and the winds of change gust through the streets with the Meiji Restoration. The capital moved to Tokyo, but Kyoto courageously transformed this seeming setback into a different kind of strength, preserving traditions that could have easily been swept away in the progress of the time.
Preserved they were, and thank goodness for that. And speaking of preservation, World War II left much of Japan in devastation. However, largely due to its cultural value, Kyoto was spared the bombings that so many other cities suffered.
This, thanks to many, including the American Secretary of War, who, reputedly appreciative of its historical and cultural significance, struck it from the list of bombing targets.
And so, Lara, the history of Kyoto is as much about the near misses as it is about the direct hits it took over the centuries. It's a history steeped in reverence, the reverence of the Japanese for their past and the respect of the world for this repository of human culture and heritage.
It's a city that has worn many hats: capital, cultural hub, arena for political strife, and now a custodian of the soul of Japan. Even as battle cries have long faded into the whispers of kimono-clad Maiko and Gion, the memory of those cries still shapes the collective psyche of Kyoto.
Now, Lara, no talk of Kyoto's history would be complete without mentioning its status as an imperial city. The imperial family was rooted here for over a millennium, and it's a legacy that continues to shape Kyoto's majestic stance.
From its aristocratic traditions emerged the grandeur of the imperial palace, the elegance of the courtly kimonos, and Kyoto's very own distinct dialect, which still carries echoes of refined court life.
Indeed. Yet even in its refinement, the city has a wild, untamed streak. Look no further than the fire festivals held here. The famous Gozan no Okuribi literally sets the mountains around Kyoto ablaze with giant flaming kanji and shapes to guide spirits during Obon.
It's a spectacle against the night sky, where fire purifies and sends off ancestral spirits, a ceremony that also illuminates Kyoto's enduring dance with the cycles of life and death.
And so, dear listeners, Kyoto's history is vibrant and alive. It's not confined to dusty tomes or forgotten passages. It breathes through the streets, resounds in the temple bells, and continues to shape the city's destiny.
It's hard not to be moved by a past so rich and enduring. As we journey through Kyoto, each step we take is a step through centuries, a tandem walk with all those who've come before us.
But as the Japanese saying goes, even the past can be changed by the narrative. So as we continue to share Kyoto's story, even its history evolves anew in the telling.
As our listeners can surely tell, Kyoto is a narrative that never really ends. After this brief pause, we'll return to share yet more tales, including practical travel tips to help you navigate this historic canvas. Stay tuned. Once again, welcome back to Travel with Lara and Luca, your go-to podcast for traversing the globe, one story at a time. Now that we've immersed ourselves in Kyoto's rich past, let's bring you back to the present with some expert travel tips that'll help you navigate this ancient yet ever so modern city.
That's right, Lara. Kyoto boasts a charm that is as intricate as its narrow lanes and as expansive as its bamboo forests. So, let's share our wisdom and make sure your journey through Kyoto is seamless, enriching, and above all, memorable. Say it with me. It's time for travel hacks.
Travel hacks. All right, tip number 1. When to visit. Kyoto is stunning year-round, but there are two peak seasons, cherry blossom season in the spring and the fiery maple leaves season in the fall. Both are incredibly beautiful, but also incredibly crowded.
So, here's the hack. Consider visiting in the off-peak seasons. Winter, though cold, has its own charm, with light snow sometimes dusting temples like Kinkaku-ji, turning it into a golden wonderland. And early summer, before the heat kicks in, when the city is lush and the crowds are thinner.
On the topic of crowds, tip number 2 is all about timing. The trick to avoiding those massive groups at popular sites is to go early in the morning or just before closing. There's something quite surreal about having a place like Fushimi Inari Taisha almost to yourself.
Oh, it's magical. But if you do brave the crowds, respecting the space and the local customs is key. Which brings us to tip number 3, culture and etiquette. Kyotoites take traditions seriously, wearing yukata the right way, proper conduct in temples and shrines. It's all essential in showing respect.
Which means, for instance, not walking in the middle of the torii gates. Stay to the side. It's where the spirits are said to walk. And remember, a bow can say 1,000 words here. Learn the gentle art of bowing. It's a sign of gratitude and respect.
Now, tip number 4, transportation. Kyoto's public transport is excellent, but it can also be a bit, let's say, labyrinthine for the uninitiated. Buses are great for reaching those places that aren't on the subway lines, but for maximum flexibility, nothing beats renting a bicycle.
Kyoto is surprisingly bike-friendly, and you'll get to those off-the-beaten-path spots quicker. Plus, there's something utterly delightful about pedaling along the Kamo River with the breeze in your hair. Speaking from experience.
Can confirm, biking in Kyoto is a joy. Here comes tip number 5. Embrace convenience stores, or konbini as they're known locally. They're more than a place for a quick snack, they're lifelines. You can buy tickets for local attractions, use free Wi-Fi, withdraw cash, and yes, indulge in surprisingly tasty food.
Konbini food for the win. We're looking at you, onigiri and warm bento boxes. Tip number 6, folks, accommodation. Kyoto caters to all budgets, but for an immersive experience, try staying in a ryokan or a machiya, a traditional wooden townhouse, at least for a night or two.
It's all about those sliding paper doors and futons rolled out on tatami flooring. For those traveling on a budget, capsule hotels are a uniquely Japanese experience, not to mention hostels that can be both affordable and incredibly stylish.
And speaking of style, let's not forget about souvenir shopping. Tip number 7 is for those looking to bring a piece of Kyoto back home. The city is renowned for its traditional crafts. Think kyoyaki ceramics, Yuzen silk dyeing, and so much more. Don't miss the cultural experience of shopping at a local craftsman's shop.
That's where you find the heart of Kyoto. Tip number 8, eating out. If you want to dine where the locals do, venture to the areas just off the main streets. Pontocho Alley, close to the Kamo River, is lined with dining spots, from high-end kaiseki to casual yakitori stands.
Exactly, and don't be deterred by small, crowded places. Sometimes the best meals are had around a counter with a chef cooking right before your eyes. Tip number 9, stay connected. While Kyoto is the epitome of historical Japan, you'll want to stay plugged into the modern age.
Renting a pocket Wi-Fi device or buying a local SIM card can be a lifesaver, especially when you're trying to navigate the streets or translate a particularly complicated kanji.
And lastly, tip number 10, pace yourself. Kyoto isn't a city for rushing, it's a city for discovering, one step at a time. Savor the moments, allow for serendipitous detours. The best experiences in Kyoto are often the ones you stumble upon unexpectedly.
There's a saying in Kyoto, ichigo ichie, meaning one time, one meeting. Each encounter, each experience is unique and will never occur in the same way again. Embrace that philosophy, and your travels through Kyoto will be unforgettable.
Such wisdom, Luca. And speaking of unforgettable encounters, stick around because we'll be exploring the art of the side excursion after this short break. The journey is far from over, friends. And we're gliding back into travel with Lara and Luca as we introduce the delightful practice of sobo, the Japanese term for side excursion. Kyoto is a treasure chest, but its surroundings are the map to further riches. What's the first jewel on our map, Luca?
Our inaugural sobo gem has to be Uji. Just a stone's throw from Kyoto, Uji tantalizes with its world-class green tea. The city not only has a rich tea culture, but also heavy historical significance, featuring in The Tale of Genji.
Uji is where you sip matcha, as the ancients might have, against the backdrop of the majestic Byodo Inn Temple. And speaking of the Tale of Genji, there's even a museum dedicated to it. For literature buffs and tea addicts alike, Uji is a must-visit.
From Uji's tranquil refinement, we veer off into the raw, spiritual realm of Mount Koya, or Koyasan. It's a bit of a journey, but this center of Shingon Buddhism is a serene world apart, nestled high in the mountains.
Koyasan is one of those places that are almost otherworldly. You can even partake in shukubo, staying at a temple and experiencing the life of a monk, including meditation sessions and vegetarian cuisine. It's a soul cleanse like no other.
Soul cleanses and cemetery strolls. Koyasan's Okunoin Cemetery is the largest in Japan, a place where otherworldly ambiance and spiritual significance create an indelible memory.
But if you're looking for a livelier side excursion, make a beeline for Osaka. Japan's kitchen, as it's affectionately known, is bursting with energy, neon lights, and incredible street food. Don't leave without trying takoyaki, those delicious octopus-filled dough balls.
Osaka is where you let loose, marvel at the imposing Osaka Castle, and then dive into the raucous, laughter-filled world of Dotonbori. It's a city that's loud, proud, and a joyous complement to Kyoto's demure beauty.
Then there's Nara, Japan's first permanent capital, and a side excursion that deserves a day of wandering, not least for the bowing deer that famously roam Nara Park. These gentle creatures nuzzle and shuffle among visitors, creating a whimsical experience.
Nara's Todaiji Temple, housing the giant Daibutsu, the great Buddha, is enough to make you feel both humbled and elevated. The combination of nature, history, and divine serenity finds a unique home in Nara.
In contrast, if you want a more contemporary experience, Iwatayama Monkey Park in Arashiyama brings you face-to-face with Japanese macaques. But heed this sage advice, dear travelers. Respect the monkey's space, and they'll respect yours.
They're cheeky, they're adorable, and the view from the park is an added bonus, one of the best panoramas of Kyoto around. Another sobo that combines scenic beauty with cultural heritage is Amano Hashidat, known for its sandbar that stretches across Miyazu Bay.
Often counted among Japan's 3 most scenic views, Amano Hashidate can be viewed from mountaintops at either end of the sandbar. It's said that when viewed upside down between your legs, it appears as a pathway to heaven, hence its name, Bridge to Heaven.
A more hands-on encounter can be had in Izumo, an area renowned for its pottery. Side excursions here could include a pottery workshop where you can get your hands dirty and craft your own piece to take home.
Then there's the chance for a rural refresh at Ohara, a village not far from Kyoto that seems untouched by time. Here you'll find rural landscapes, organic farms, and the serene Sanzanin Temple with its moss gardens, a peek into Japan's rural heart.
And finally, if you yearn for the sea, the coastal town of Maizuru boasts naval history, fresh seafood, and a collection of picturesque hidden inlets. It's a beautiful contrast to Kyoto's temple-laden terrain.
A sobo, Luca, is really just a chance to stretch your legs and your horizons. Whether it's connecting with nature or discovering a new layer of Japan's cultural fabric, there's a side excursion for every inclination.
Each direction you take from Kyoto offers a new facet, a new tale, and in every one, the pulsing heart of Japan beats strong. So when in Kyoto, don't hesitate to take that extra step, catch that train, or hop on a bike to see where the path leads.
And as our path temporarily diverges for a short break, take a moment to envisage your next sobo. Will it be a temple stay, a gourmand's gamble through Osaka? Whatever piques your interest, Kyoto and its environs await.
Hold that thought and that eager spirit. When we return, Lara and I will share our concluding reflections on Kyoto and look ahead to the next adventure. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the final stretch of Travel with Lara and Luca, Kyoto edition. It's been a journey through time, taste, and the tranquil paths of both the known and the unknown in this ancient city and its captivating surroundings.
Oh, it's bittersweet, Lara. As we draw this episode to a close, I'm overcome with that mono no aware sensation we alluded to earlier. The beauty in the ephemeral nature of things, a fitting sentiment for the end of our virtual Kyoto trip.
So true, Luca, yet in this conclusion lies an invitation to not see this as an ending, but as the beginning of your own Kyoto story, should you choose to visit. Let's offer some final thoughts, shall we?
Let's do that. Kyoto, for all its historical weight, isn't locked away behind glass or trapped in amber. It's a living, breathing city that harmonizes the past with the pulse of the present. Every temple, every raked stone, every wooden machiya tells a story.
And even in the tales left untold, there's a narrative. Those quiet moments you find for yourself amid the bustle, the serendipity of turning down an alley to discover a tiny patisserie that makes the best yuzu tart you've ever tasted.
Oh, the yuzu tart. A sublime bite, indeed. Those personal discoveries are the treasures of travel. Kyoto is a treasure trove because it doesn't reveal everything at once. The city rewards patience, mindfulness, and a willing sense of adventure.
Adventure. Exactly. Whether it's in the mastery of an elegantly performed tea ceremony or in the echoes of an ancient no play at one of Kyoto's many temples. To be a spectator in Kyoto is to be a part of the city's theater.
Theater that extends to its gastronomy too. From kaiseki to street food stalls and those convenience store delights, the city beckons with a spread worthy of emperors and accessible to every traveler.
And with accessibility in mind, Don't forget those expert travel tips we shared. Embracing Kyoto means embracing its customs, its pace. Kyoto isn't a destination to conquer. It's one to commune with, to learn from.
That's beautifully said, Lara. Kyoto, if anything, teaches. It teaches grace, etiquette, the significance of silence, and the heavy words of history, the dynamics of nature's brushstrokes across 4 distinct seasons.
It's in that grace where you find the magic. I can still remember the first blush of dawn with its soft mist over Kinkaku-ji. Watching the temple awaken in a haze of gold, that's Kyoto to me.
And as we awakened to each new Kyoto day, every experience felt like a verse in our own personal haiku. Speaking of which, how about we share a haiku as our poetic goodbye to Kyoto?
A lovely idea. Let me think. Silent temple bells, echoes of footsteps in time, Kyoto's heart beats.
That was beautiful, Lara. The essence of Kyoto in a handful of syllables. For our listeners, moments like these, simple and profound, are what you'll carry with you long after you've returned home.
Because Kyoto isn't just a set of experiences, it's an enduring echo that resonates in the heart, a whispering call to return, to explore further, to delve deeper.
We really hope that this episode has stirred a longing inside you to walk the path of philosophers, to taste the delicacies of the local markets, to feel the ancient wood of the temple doors beneath your fingers.
And as we wrap up, we invite you to share your own experiences with us. The places you've been, the hidden gems you've uncovered, those unexpected delights. Your stories inspire our travels and the tales we tell on this show.
If you've enjoyed our journey to Kyoto, wait until you see where we're heading next. Your tales and suggestions might just be the roadmap to our future episodes. So, until next time, keep wandering, keep wondering.
On behalf of Luca and myself, thank you for inviting us into your world, even if just for a while. Here's wishing you journeys filled with awe, moments of clarity, cultural connections, and stories that beg to be shared.
So, dear travelers, until our paths cross again on the next Travel with Lara and Luca, take care, stay curious, and remember that every step you take is a story waiting to begin. Sayonara for now.
Sayonara, friends. Happy travels.